We're very excited to welcome in our next guest to talk about some end of season award stuff, to talk about some MLS Cup playoff previews, and maybe some other topics. We have got the one and only Max Bretos, voice of LAFC and Apple TV announcer, joining the show right now. Max, thanks so much for taking the time to join us tonight. How are you doing?
Doing great. It's tremendous to be with you, Ari and Noah. Been looking forward to this. I know Noah's mentioned it to me a couple times, and Ari as well. So the fact that it's happening now is pretty exciting.
I know, it's surreal. Yeah, it all started out actually like many things on this show with Paul Rothrock.
Correct.
Yeah, we took notice of the use of Rothrock and roll on a Seattle broadcast that you were doing, and that's a term that we had used before. People were saying that you Max lifted it from us, but that's not true. Like, it's a very easy.
We're very unoriginal here.
It's we wanted to clarify that first and foremost for the people.
And I didn't lift you, but I just want to make it abundantly clear: I am not above and beyond lifting, plagiarizing from folks in the soccer spectrum in a light way. Plagiarism is too strong a word, but if I see something, maybe I'll pop it in there from time to time if I like it.
Rothrock and roll is public domain. Any publicity that he can get, and honestly, we really appreciate him getting some national attention because we've been talking about him here in Seattle all season. We'll get to Paul Rothrock, but to start it off here, I wanted to ask you about the discourse of the moment. It's end of season awards season.
We did our ballot.
We did an episode where we went through our ballot. I cast my votes earlier today, actually. But I wanted to ask you who you have for MVP this year. There's been a lot of debate about this, and I will tell you that I've gone through a lot of consternation over it and like who I should vote for. And I came to the conclusion that it has to be Lionel Messi. And when we were talking through it, I kind of got to a point where I think it's honestly a little crazy that we're even debating it, considering the types of numbers he's put up this year and how efficiently he's done it. I actually think the amount of minutes he's played, which is the knock that people are using against him, actually strengthens his case when you consider that his numbers are as good or better than all the other candidates in about half the minutes. How did you size up this year's MVP race? And you can tell us who you voted for if you want, but you don't have to.
Sure. No, I voted for Cucho Hernandez, but I lost a lot of sleep over this one. And I think first of all, Lionel Messi is going to win it, and he's going to win it convincingly. So maybe I just was trying to even up the ballots a little bit. But I think it's a fair point. I mean, for him to ramp up to 20 goals by this, and I did my votes prior to decision day, but I think this year it was probably wise to wait until decision day because it was an MVP race that I felt was going to the tape. I mean, it was very fluid until October. You know, this Evander was getting some hype, and I was going to say maybe a month, 3 weeks. I was going to say I'd probably vote for Evander. Granted, we're all in the West, so my votes were slightly tilted to the Western Conference, but I do that comfortably because I think the folks in the East do the same thing. So it all comes out in the wash. But it's the final that bounced around. Chicho Arango's award back in the summer, and then it was Evander's possibly, and then it was Messi, and then it was like Miami splitting the votes, and then Cucho and Lucho picked up the steam. So it really was like a dead heat almost. But you know, Messi is the right choice. I mean, I almost regret the Cucho just because everything that you said, and not to mention how he's changed this league and the exposure we're getting. That's good for all of us in the big picture. Just, you know, sometimes I like to peek at these social media numbers. And I know it's social media. It's not real life. But when you see, you know, an Instagram post about Messi or Miami getting 1 million likes, or their YouTube video, which I watch so often of games, and you click on it, and normally an MLS YouTube game recap has like 20,000 likes, and then this last Miami game has 2.5 million after a day. This is raw numbers, and people are focusing on Messi in Miami, but that's a doorway for the rest of the league. And look, every league has these teams, and everyone kind of filters down. You know, Real Madrid and Barcelona, people don't watch La Liga to see Cadiz, or they don't watch the Premier League to see Nottingham Forest. They they see the top, and the rest benefit from that. So hopefully we can get a couple more Messis if they're out there, and maybe some out here on the West Coast.
I mean, we do have Denny Bouanga, so that's basically like Messi too. If I had to,
it's true, and that's a good segue into the next question that we had for you. Actually, thanks for that, Noah. And for the record, Cucho Hernandez is a good vote. That's who I was gonna vote for, pretty much.
I was the devil on his shoulder.
Up until our episode where we went through the ballot, I was saying that I knew that Messi deserved it on the merits, but that I was going to give it to Cucho based on the minutes argument. By the end of the segment, I was like, you know what? Like, I know who I'm going to vote for, and I can feel convicted in it. Yeah, Noah, you mentioned LAFC there at the end, which, Max, obviously that's the club you know best. So we wanted to talk to you a little bit about LAFC, and just sort of sizing up the season as a whole from them. For us, LAFC and the Seattle Sounders played several times this year. It did not go.
Did they play?
It did not go what I would describe as especially well for the Seattle Sounders. Very one-sided head-to-heads in this Western Conference rivalry that's really developed since LAFC has been in the league. Obviously, another excellent season for LAFC in Supporters Shield contention. A kind of classic, I think, very good buzzsaw-like season in some ways, but from the outside, it feels like maybe a little more adversity at points than previous LAFC seasons. Would you agree with that? And just how are you feeling about this season and this team's MLS Cup prospects going into the playoffs?
I think a good launching point is, as we talked about MVP, my coach of the year was Tata Martino. But if I waited, I would have probably had to give Steve Cherundolo more consideration. And it's something the Sounders haven't had to do. But a lot of teams in MLS, Real Salt Lake, Houston, LAFC, Austin, several other teams, Cincinnati, they incorporated new players over the last few weeks, and they all kind of struggled. Colorado did that a little bit too with a couple new players. And that's something that is very difficult to do, to incorporate these players. And LAFC did it with, I think, about 5 players. Lewis O'Brien, who's an everyday starter now, Olivier Giroud, I know I'm forgetting a couple other guys, but the guys, Kai Kamara was earlier in the season, but there's a couple guys that you have to incorporate, and your team's going to sputter a little bit, maybe clip a hurdle. And they did, but then Steve Cherundolo got it all right, and now he has this team with these new players. Marlon, the Brazilian, just came in. He scores this huge goal on decision day. So he's gotten these guys in, and they've gelled as a team, which I just want to really let people know how difficult that is, because you've got to manage everything. There's players that are losing playing time. You've got to manage them. There's players that have to get adjusted. You got to get them into the bloodstream. And Steve Cherundolo did that in 2022. There was a little bit of a process where they struggled, and then things clicked. And this team is kind of getting towards that place where they could be the best LAFC team of the 3 years during this great era that they've had. And Steve Cherundolo is a big part of it. And they have a deep team. I mean, their bench is delivering. Depth is always such a luxury in MLS. LAFC has it, but this was a work in progress. He'd be the first to tell you that too. It's like, it's going to be this and it's going to be that. They had that bad patch in August, and then it all fit. The jigsaw came together. So this is a very strong team, the worthy number 1 in the West, and they're going to be very difficult to beat. But talking to LAFC president Larry Friedman on Saturday night and a couple other people, everyone's worried about the Sounders because they're not a schlep team, and they're going to be hot. And the law of averages say it's hard to beat a team 5 times. It's not a matchup. I think LAFC. Maybe the Sounders don't want it either. But LAFC has to be going. We gave so much to beat this team in Leagues Cup, and that Open Cup game was a grind. It could have gone either way. It's hard to imagine that it could continue to be on one direction. I know it could, but it's interesting. It'll be interesting if that's the matchup we get in the conference semis.
I'm interested to know, because I like this shout of Steve Cherundolo for Coach of the Year. We hadn't even put him on our radar, but I like.
It wasn't on my radar 2-3 weeks ago, and then I'm like, Put him on there.
Yeah, I like this. We're very like we're pundit. We like to say we're not pundit brained. We're super pundit brained. We like to outsmart everyone. And I like the thought of like I didn't even think about how many players LAFC really did integrate, and that's been such a good quality. I feel like with LAFC, a lot of people want Albert Rusnak on the Sounders to be bought out or so, find some way to find a better DP. And we always hit on the fact that getting a new player, no matter what their salary range is, pedigree, is always going to be a challenge to get them integrated. And so I think that's a pretty good shout that I mean, I didn't think about. I mean, what about you, Ari?
No, I hadn't thought of that either, but I think Steve C did do a great job this year. Steve C, as we call him.
Yeah.
And I think his coach of the year shout is actually a good one. But I think really like the point you were just making, Noah, like a lot of it is about John Thorrington from where I sit. The work that he's done with LAFC's roster, like really since they came into the league, has been fantastic. Wanted to ask you more broadly, Max, about the playoffs and just I was just going to tell you how I kind of see this playoff field this year, and then you can see if you see it similarly. But I mean, my question, I guess, is can anyone beat Inter Miami? Because the way I look at it is I really don't see much of a scenario where anyone is able to slow them down. I think Columbus and LAFC are probably the two clubs that are most equipped to do it. But I just think, I don't know about you, but when I watch this Inter Miami team play with Messi and the Barca boys, and when everyone's healthy and they're at the top of their game, I've never seen a MLS team that has a gear like this. Maybe 2019 LAFC got close, and maybe some of these recent Columbus and LAFC teams like they are buzzsaw like, but this Inter Miami team, they just have a different gear, and when they're in tournament mode and they're rolling, I have a hard time seeing how they don't win MLS Cup. Do you see that any differently?
Unless you're New York City FC, because apparently they can't beat New York City.
True.
Well, I mean, I guess that's the concern, is that maybe they have a bad day in the conference semis or the conference final, and that could see them out. But it's that what happened this weekend, and even the weeks prior, where they all season they fall behind in games, and then they just put their foot on the pedal. But to fall down 2 and have 6 unanswered, and that's that's Man City, that's Real Madrid behavior. And I think if you put all these resumes next to each other, Inter Miami's far and away the best. Columbus is probably the second best, but then they go to Columbus a couple weeks ago and beat them pretty firmly. So I mean, there was a Columbus win there in the Leagues Cup and stuff. This Inter Miami team is healthy. They're well coached. There's a weird thing about, and we saw it from the beginning, just being on the field with Messi, which is something I never really considered about Lionel Messi in his prior spots. But just being on the field with him just lifts these guys to where, I think we've seen it with the national team. I don't know if the Argentine national team is this breathtaking, star-studded group that has now won 2 Copa Americas and a World Cup. And I don't think Messi is that influential, but there's something about his presence. He is influential, but there's something about his presence that now lifts these teams, that guys will do anything to let him be successful, and their games go through the roof. It's like this superpower thing. So it's not just Messi, and he wasn't like this in the past, lifting his game, but lifting others because of the type of guy he is, because of the type of teammate. He deserves all that credit, whether it's Suarez or Alba or Busquets, or whether it's Diego Gomez or Benjamin Kremaski or anybody, Drake Callender, that kind of are a better player playing with Messi than they might be somewhere else. So there's so many things at play here, and it's really important to also look at how they were so good when he wasn't playing. But I still think that that's some sort of Messi effect. This force field he builds around it. This is Lionel Messi's team, and because he's there, he has built a standard. And wearing that Inter Miami shirt, which has only been around for 3-4 years, carries a lot of weight now. Same way the Argentine national team or Barcelona does. It's something you can't really put your finger on, but it has made them, just this maybe the best team we've ever seen in MLS. But we've never really seen anything like this. And again, it's not just Messi, but his presence lifts this thing. And they've been very fortunate not to get too bad of bad health down the stretch, with the exception of Messi, who missed a big stretch a few weeks there after the Copa America. But it's really impressive. Yeah, they should be the favorite, and I'm curious to see what the sports book thinks, because I imagine they're going to be the big money favorite to lift the MLS Cup.
Yeah, that's a great point about just the extent to which he elevates the whole team and all the players around him. I mean, I think he's the only player in the world that could turn Robert Taylor, our guy Bob T, into Angel Di Maria.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
We love Bob
From the
T.
beginning, you'd see these players and go, "Who is this guy? I've seen this guy play for 2 years, and he's bang average, and now he's yeah, like, as you said, it's Angel Di Maria."
Yeah, no, it's phenomenal to watch. I did want to ask you if we could get back to LAFC for 1 second. I wanted to ask your thoughts on how the Olivier Giroud thing has gone so far. Obviously, he came in with, one of the best strikers of this generation, and came in with a lot of hype. And it feels like he has not maybe made the impact or played the amount that we might have hoped or thought he would yet. But when I look at it, I also think it is a very undeniable potential X factor for LAFC in the playoffs, in much the same way Gareth Bale proved to be a couple years ago. And I kind of, as I size up a potential matchup with Seattle and LAFC in the playoffs, I really can't get that out of my head. We saw a little bit of what he could do in the Open Cup, but where's his just fitness and integration with the team? And do you think that he could potentially take kind of a leap in the playoffs here?
I mean, we've been waiting, and I was anticipating that game against San Jose on decision day could be that breakthrough. The game prior against Vancouver, to me, was his best game of the season, even though he hasn't scored a goal and he's frustrated and he's not getting the service he needs. And sometimes it's just a square peg in a round hole with LAFC, because playing with Denis Bouanga has its challenges, right? I mean, Olivier Giroud is not full of pace, and Denis Bouanga stretches the field, and you could see Giroud trailing. So it's not a perfect teammate in that sense. Sometimes if they could slow it down a bit, maybe that brings Olivier Giroud. But his hold-up play, as you said, Ari, is like you can see that this is a step above, a class above type player. And everything's in there except the goals. What the difference between him and Gareth Bales is, obviously he's played every game almost down the stretch here. And he is just, you see him at training. He loves being here. This is not, I'm retiring. He loves it. You can see it at the end of decision day, embracing his teammates, watching the Houston Galaxy game, getting all giddy like a kid. So, and he's got Hugo Lloris there, who is, a familiar face and who has completely settled in and had a remarkable season. But I don't think we give him enough credit because it's Hugo Lloris. I think that possibility of exploding, he's going to keep playing. And I think Steve C does like what he brings to the plate, where he can have guys running off of him, and it creates an advantage. And he holds up center backs unlike any forward we have in this league, and that's something. You want the goals. LAFC are getting goals from different people, so you don't have to complain too much about the amount of goals, but you would like your number 9 to score. If the playoffs begin, and let's say 2 games in, he's not scoring, I wouldn't. There might be less minutes for him. I still think he starts. I also get the feeling if you get that first goal, maybe the second one comes in pretty quickly. It's him and his teammates still working on the best places to find him. You can see it's frustrating, but instead of putting his head down, he finds other ways to contribute to what LAFC does. So it's not an empty space by any means. It's not a guy going, hey, get him off the field. He does enough, even though he didn't play great against San Jose, he does enough to maintain his position in the starting 11.
I wanted to go back quickly to, you said the LAFC is not super excited to potentially play the Sounders here in the playoffs, which, we have to go play Houston. So there's no, you never know what's going to happen. But
by the way,
I want to hear this.
But I would just sorry to interrupt you, but I was watching the Houston game, and when Daniel Steres scored, everyone went crazy, except for Ben Olsen. And I get he would kind of put his head down, because with all the positions changing, I think he said, in his head, and I'm just saying this is what I think. I don't know if you thought this. He's thinking, I wanted Salt Lake. I don't want Seattle. I don't want. I mean, Seattle's. I mean, if you did a power rankings right now, and unless I put Inter Miami, Columbus, LAFC, Galaxy, Sounders, that's Cincinnati. That'd be the 5th best team in the league right now. You don't want them. If you get Salt Lake, who's sputtered, a team that integrated a lot of players and struggled. That's at the back end of the season.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And just, knowing all of that, and I guess with Houston being scared, what makes LAFC so fearful of another matchup, which I think Sounders fans, and I mean, Ari, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but that's like I was praying we would get the 3rd seed so we could just go face the Galaxy and hopefully beat them again.
Yeah.
I think you have that right. Yeah.
Maybe you're right and I'm wrong. And I'm just saying that maybe the players of LAFC are like, bring them on. We know how to.
Yeah.
That's just me thinking. But, I think there are some people that go, I think anyone, you're like, can't keep.
Well, if there's one source of kind of optimism or hope that we've been holding on to, I mean, it's both the fact that Seattle's been in good form for the last couple months, but also Seattle does have a track record of kind of turning up come playoff time and going on these runs. They've been a very good tournament team, and they've won a few of these. If I was an opposing team, I wouldn't necessarily be chomping at the bit with Seattle to face Seattle either, even though it hasn't been maybe as good a season for Seattle as we've gotten used to like in the past few years. I think really I only have one more note.
Have you seen Pedro La Vega? Have you seen him can he be? You've seen some good steps. Have you seen him someone we can depend on him? He could be a difference maker in the playoffs. Have we seen that De La Vega yet?
No. I don't think we will.
That's kind of the big question if that will finally happen. And I think any shot that this team has of making a sustained run in the playoffs hinges on that in a lot of ways. But he's been injured all year, hasn't looked fully fit, hasn't looked fully sharp, hasn't looked fully integrated when have that chemistry developed with the rest of the team. So
he looked all right against Portland. I'll say, like, he had some magic moments that I think Ari perfectly put this a couple episodes ago where he said he has these tools that no other player on the roster has. That if he can just get that finish down, get that final piece, get that pass off, he could be electric. But I think we've yet to see the end product.
And at the very least, game 1, Houston, he's going to start. I mean, we're talking that Brian Schmetzer could be Georgia Monongo. It has to be De La Vega at this point, correct?
We were actually planning on debating that when we record later, but I think so. But Georgie has made that more interesting discussion than you would probably think.
Sure,
he's been playing very well.
And either way, to have a guy like that, one of those guys come off the bench. I mean, because Seattle's depth is good. It's not LAFC's level, but any way they can close that gap, then that'll benefit the Sounders' hopes of advancing here.
Exactly. Well, unless you had anything else, Noah, I think we can get Max out of here.
I got one more.
Let's do one more.
Let's do one more.
We'll let you go, Max.
Hit your Rothrock question.
Oh, okay. I had this.
Rothrock.
Well, I thought that we already did the Rothrock content, but yeah. So I mean, it's been the year of Paul Rothrock on our show. It started off as a bit,
little
for sure.
bit, yeah.
Well, like
half and half.
There was a period of time last year and earlier this season where Seattle was struggling a lot, mightily, some might say, on offense. And Paul Rothrock, every time he got a chance to play in the Open Cup, he was banging in goals. And we were like, you know what? Like, why not give him some run? You're not scoring goals anyway. Like, he scored goals in the Open Cup. May as well try it. And then Brian Schmetzer took our advice because he listens to the show.
He does.
And,
big fan.
And then he started starting Paul Rothrock in all comps, and he hasn't stopped scoring goals since. My question I wrote down was just your thoughts on where Paul Rothrock ranks in the hierarchy of all-time great MLS players. But I mean, on a serious note, I mean, we took notice on the broadcast that you had clearly done your research and read up on the Paul Rothrock storyline, and we appreciated seeing someone with the national perspective actually look into what's happening with the team and be like, Paul Rothrock is apparently one of the best players. So I'm just wondering, like, from the outside perspective, how you kind of found out about the Paul Rothrock storyline and what you thought of it once you learned more about it, because it's really it's one of our favorite stories, I think, since we've covered the team.
Yeah, I think yeah.
It really is stupendous. And, I try to talk to Brian Schmetzer because I don't have the trained mind that he has when he does these players. But when you see Paul Rothrock, you go, this is a star player. He's performing. At first, Brian Schmetzer put him in and said, I need a player that I can say, do this, and they do it to a T. So that just shows you, okay, it's a hardworking guy, and limited technical skills, which he disguises with the work, the intelligence, and this. I want to throw in bravery because he's just not intimidated, and something like that I think messes with these defenders because Seattle's gotten pretty fortunate, and they owe Paul Rothrock. They're indebted to Paul Rothrock because look, they didn't add players. They haven't spent money other than De La Vega at the beginning of the season. No big moves there, and based on that, I would have imagined that Seattle would have been left behind, and they maybe finished in the where they were earlier in the season, 7, 8, 9. Paul Rothrock to me gave that little edge, which lifted everyone else, and it allowed all the pieces to work functionally. It allowed Jordan Morris to play where he does. I mean, if Jordan Morris could finish a little bit more frequently, he would have an MVP season as well. He's been great, but I mean, he still needs to tuck away a few more chances. And then Albert Rusnak with set pieces, winning set pieces. He wins free kicks, he gets corners, wins penalties. And, everyone in MLS is spending $10 million on a star winger, whether it's Joseph Paintsil or Gabriel Peck or Bukhari at Austin, guys like that. They're all dropping 9-10 million transfer fees. Seattle paid zilch for a transfer fee, Paul Rothrock, and I'm not putting him in their class. He's not the player those guys are, but he's giving Seattle the same type of production that those guys are, and he may hit a wall. But I still sit here and go, he's getting better, and he's getting more and more confident. He feels he's at that level. I think it makes him a pretty dangerous player. And his arrival, where it was kind of cute at first, oh, that's nice, Paul Rothrock. He's just like a really important player, not just for the Sounders, but within this league. So I hope it keeps going. It really is remarkable. We don't get that, and it's another testament about how well the Sounders develop players locally. I know that there's probably more talent in LA. There should be more talent in Portland, but we don't see that. It's Seattle constantly finding, developing, and bringing them up to the senior team. And it's awesome when you have a team with such a local influence. Seattle is that.
Yeah, we love talking about that, and I'll leave it here with the Paul Rothrock. I thought it was fun. I did a little photo shoot with him last week, and he told me when we were just chatting, he was like, initially I was going to pitch myself as like a right back, like a right wing back. He was like, I just didn't care. I was like, I was going to do whatever it took to get on that field. And I just feel like that is the type of determination and stuff that I love to see in the League, one, because I think MLS gives such a great opportunity to players like that, and two, total Seattle story. And just to go along with your anecdotes there.
And it's so true that he totally bailed the Sounders out.
He did.
They haven't been playing. Rui Diaz has been hurt and non-productive when he has played all year. So that's one DP. De La Vega, another one, has been hurt pretty much all year, hasn't produced, and is just now getting fit. They got zeros from both of those spots on the roster and on the books. And Paul Rothrock comes in and saved their asses. I think it's fair to say. So that's a great point.
And Georgie Manungu, to a lesser degree, kind of on his heels, kind of saying, well, I'll give you a little bit more. Completely unexpected. Otherwise, Seattle would have had to go into the market and drop some serious coin, which I don't know if they wanted to do, to find someone that can give you the contributions that Paul Rothrock has given them. It's crazy. It's a really remarkable story. And when the cherry on top is that amazing hair he has.
He is. Yeah. His hair is great.
All right. Well, I think we are going to let you go on that. Max Bretos, voice of LAFC and Apple TV announcer. You can catch him on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. Max, thank you so much for the time. That was a great conversation. We'll have to do it again soon. Looking forward to the
what's your next match you're calling?
Yeah, what match are you calling next?
I'm going to do the Western Wild Card.
Nice.
Flying to Portland tomorrow night, and we were going to do. I was actually going to do Seattle-Houston second game, but now we're going to do RSL and Minnesota game 1 and 2.
They
We'll
robbed
see from
us.
there.
They robbed us.
Robbed
Well.
of the Bretos call on
Yeah.
the Sounders Dynamo
If it
game,
was a
and that's
Sunday night
tragic.
game, I would have done it, but it was Sunday
Well,
afternoon.
it's Monday.
I didn't get there.
Yeah. Well, hey, we appreciate you. Is there anything you want to plug? Anything like that?
Oh, sure. Check out the Soccer OG. It's my podcast. It's also on YouTube under my name, Max Bretos. Just trying to get some whatever hot American soccer stories out there, so I can get my 2 cents in.
I love it.
There.
We'll make sure to link it below so everyone who's listening and watching, go check it out. We love Max. Thank you so much for doing this. We appreciate you, man.
You guys, first class. Thank you.
Take care, Max.
Have a good one, Max.